Recording. Here we go. Yo. Okay. So when we animate a character, we always start from the COG and up, because COG has all the movements, weight shifts, up and down, all that shit, all that stuff. So let's go to our graph editor. Let's do one thing at a time, okay? Because you guys are junior. So right now, she has an up arc coming down, and it hits pretty hard, obviously, because we didn't add overshoot or anything. So right now, if we hit in there, we want to just set a random key at around 16. That's my style, and then you want to add an overshoot. Overshoot means it should come down a little bit, like that, right? And then try to tune it from the graph. It can't be too low. Something like that, maybe. And then it comes up to a stop, right? And then you try to keep it living, okay? Don't just let it stay there. Maybe somewhere around here, I will add a key and push it up. Something like that, okay? It's nothing like floating. If you do too much means something like this. That is called floating, okay? We want something subtle, and it settles down, okay? So let me remove all these keys. I'll do it again. COG comes up in here. Look at your curve. When it comes down, somewhere at a low key, at a key, and then push it lower so it dips down. And I'll say watch her hip, right? Some people, like for me, I would just slide it over, but if you look at your timeline right now, we have one key on frame 16. If you slide the translate Y over, you will see one extra key on your timeline, and that's not so clean. So to me, I would remove frame 16, and I would just set a key until I find a right moment. Something like that, right? That's too floaty. That's like sinking in. You feel that, right? So finally, you're gonna spend a lot of time on this. Okay, maybe here I'll set a key and it will come up a little sooner, like that. There, okay? Now, what else can we add besides up and down? We should add some left and right overshoot, right? So let's say translate forward. If your leg is already overextending at frame 14, then you want to set a key here and lower the previous key. Something like that, right? Just so like when we look at this V shape here, it's not stopping. It's not stopping like a hard stop, okay? Or if you look at the hip line, okay, look at this. We gotta soften this out. Make sure it goes to her right a little more. There, see that? Now, I would push it higher here and a little bit more over. There. It's very subtle. I don't know if you guys can see it. Yeah? So, looking at this again, the down out here may be a little too sharp. And
so kind of adds sort of a bounciness to the character.
Sure, if you can say that, yeah. Besides the hip, besides the COG, next thing we want to do is the hip. it goes one way, you can overshoot it a little more, like that, tilt a little more, right? But then here you don't want it to go back to the original space. You want to save a key somewhere around 18 so it doesn't go like a ping pong action. And then after you set a key, you want to check your curve, smooth out the handles here. If it's too flat and you can't see it, like this guy is too flat, hold Shift and Alt, right drag, slide it, so it became a better contrast for you to tune your curve. Okay. Now it feels very soft right there. That moment, it doesn't feel like a hard stop. Compare this first overshoot I have done to the next pose change. You can see a difference, right? It's very hard in the next half of the shot. It stops very abruptly. So now, if I'm doing the same thing in the next way shift on the COG only, I set a key on the hip and COG at frame 50. Her motion is coming from down to up, correct? Maybe we can make it a little lower here. There. Now the overshoot would be what? Your character is coming from. Vanessa, can you come over and drive?
What is it?
Can you come over and drive? Go to frame 26. My hand is here, okay? Her motion is coming like that action, right? Down and over. Yeah? So what should that motion be? It's like west on, west off thing. It goes, it can't stop right away. It will go a little bit over and down. So we will try to draw an S arc like this, like down, up, over, down. That kind of motion. You understand? Okay. You can sit over there because I gotta ask you to drive it later on. So down, up. It has to go a little bit up, right? And then here go a little bit over. Nope, that's not it. So let's do it one thing at a time. Let's figure out the up and down first. Maybe somewhere around here, up, down. Okay. You see how her leg is overstretching around here? If that's happening, bring all these curves a little lower. Okay. Maybe we can add a key somewhere around 46. Push this a little lower, like that. Okay. So after we've done that, what should we add next?
The shift.
Right. So shift. I'm lazy. I'm just gonna select this curve, move it over, and see what it does. Maybe around here, set a key, because that's a good key. And then at the end here, don't let it drift so much. Just bring it down a little bit. You see that? Yeah. It feels like that up arc here is a little too far. So you can either set a key or you can slide just that one translate Y key from your graph until it's an ideal movement. You see that? Now, what should we do next? After the COG?
Chest.
The hip. We want to focus on that part of the body first, and then we will figure out the hip. I feel like right here is coming to the max, so we should set a key at 38 and say that's the max, and then we can tone this down. There. I will read this as when you're my right hand is the hip. When it comes down, it should have a movement like hip moving over. That kind of movement. Okay. So You see, it's like the weight is shifting a little more. It's like the weight is leaning on her lap right now. So let's hit play. Let's see how it looks. It's better. Cool. Now let's add some on the chest. We want to work from the COG and up. Okay. You don't want to do the shoulders first. You don't want to do the head first. So the order is COG and then chest. In here you did a good job. Stretch it out just a touch. That's good. When it comes down here, squash it a little bit, tilt it down a little bit. Now when you tilt it down, it's pivoting from, it's like she's leaning over, so I want to push it back a touch. You can make it a little bounce if you want, but I feel like it should settle in a little more. And then up. So I'm going to turn on wireframe, hope it's easier for you to see. I'll set a key here, and then push it back up around here. It's a feeling, it's not like a set of theory. When you do this, it's like how you see it, okay? So if I look at her chest right now, you see that tilt right here? It's not smooth. So let's take a look at the graph. Where's my graph? See, it's not smooth because the rotate X that is tilting forward and backward is flat in here. So that's why her chest, when her chest is tilting down, there's a hiccup here, and it start again, right? So try to, you know, if something goes wrong, always go to your graph and check instead of setting a key and force it. And then same thing here. Now, when we do some more detail movement, for example, like right here, the hip is already dragging. We don't want it to come down right away. We want it to delay the reaction a little bit. So in this case, I actually lift it up a touch, and then I would shift 30 to 32. And then when it comes up here, I'll make it arrive at 38. So the whole action is delay, something like that. Don't let it come to a max right away. Right, so 42 is going to be the max, and then afterwards you can have it come down a touch, settle down a touch like that. You feel it now? Yeah? How is this? It's okay, right? Next thing we want to do is the head. This is the thing. If you look at my hand right now, if this is my COG and that's my head, you don't want it to go with the COG. You want it to drag. So when the COG comes down, you want to drag the head up. So it'll be like that kind of motion. Okay? Like that kind of motion, okay? So how do we do it on the character? I'll use this part in here, right? Because I just demonstrate how the COG comes down and the head should drag. When the COG comes down, tilt the head up. And then when the COG start going up, you tilt the head down. It'll be like this. And then settle a couple frames after the COG. Maybe a little higher. Okay, now we want to add overshoot in here too. So tilt it a little higher and down. We can push this a little more. You see? Right? Okay, so I'm gonna do the first part here now. When it goes forward, you can drag the head down. It's the opposite. And then tilt it up when the COG is coming down. There. And then when it comes down here, it's stopped too sudden. Add some overshoot key like that. Just tilt it down a little more. There you go. Okay, so that's the COG, chest and body. For the shoulder, it's just like how we did the chest. It's just a delay from the chest reaction. Okay, so when the COG comes up, you don't want it to come up right away. Actually, make it flat a little bit. When it starts coming down, your shoulder should come up, and then if the COG arrives at frame 8, your shoulder should arrive maybe frame 10, frame 11, that kind of space. Right? After it comes down, we can't just let it stay down. Maybe it has a little bounce. So if you want to add a bounce, it comes down, push it up a little bit like that. See that? Maybe it's too much, so let's reduce that. I would say this is too low. Let's push it up a little bit. Right here, it should go back up. See that? So it's like a very subtle thing, and again, there's no math, there's nothing like that. It's just if your COG is stopping at frame 0, your chest will be stopping at frame 1, your head will be at frame 2, and then your shoulder should be at frame 2, just like it stops different time. Right, the shoulder comes up, let it overshoot a little bit, and then down. So what do we do with the hand now? I don't want to show you too much because it's a lot for you guys to go through, right? Let's focus on the elbow now. The elbow here is crashing through, so obviously my hand can't just crash out from my arm. You have to figure out, okay, maybe it's coming from the in to out to do that point, okay? Like that, right? If I'm doing that, maybe the elbow can come up first. So we will be leading by the elbow, and then when the elbow comes down, the wrist goes up. In this case, right here, lead with the hand like that, and then up. Right, it can arrive at frame 10, for example. Something like that, right? You can push this timing around if you want, because this is a final pass. You should always save your blocking, by the way. And then we want to fix these crashes now. So I think this is a good key. Now, one thing I hate is just my pet peeve. I don't want to set key every 3 frames. I like every 2 frames. So here, set a key. And then frame 4, I'm going to set a key. Usually I set keys every 2 frames or every 4 frames, okay? And then I'm going to fix the elbow. Now, if it's crashing, you can't just like force it, okay? You can't do that. So try to find the best way to fix the crash. Okay, so here, that's good. I'll set a key at frame 8, so it's a little higher. You see the elbow comes into a stop and it clicks. When I watch your animation, I look at all your limbs. If I see something holding in the same shape without offsetting. That's why I will tell you, offset your arm so it's not stopping at the same frame, okay? So when we do finaling, we watch every limbs. There, push it down a touch, and then up. So it's like a bounce. That's too much. So you can take a look at your graph and control it from there. See? Okay, now let's move on to the wrist. There's one frame here that I want to fix. Let's do that. Cool. So frame 2 is good. Frame 3, let's try to make it folded in, don't crash. Frame 5, you can come up from her armpit. Keep dragging. It's not ideal to set keys on every frame, but in her situation, we can avoid that. So if her elbow arrives at frame 11, her wrist should come down at frame 12. 2 frames before that, you can add a counter key. Something like that, right? And then you can slide these 2 keys to fit the timing. There. Okay, and then also add overshoot. And then make it point back up like that. Is there any question? No? Okay, I'm gonna leave this scene up here. You guys can come over and take a look if you want. I'm gonna stop recording now.